It's quite interesting to notice how a man looks at a woman, not just in real life, but also in the works of art and literature. Because there, often you see there's a man who's a subject and there's a woman who's the object. And the man looks at the woman, he initiates the romance, and the woman responds. Very rarely it's the other way around. And at that point, we do have to question the perspective of the writer. Especially if it's a male writer, it becomes even more interesting to notice his own worldview getting into the characters. And similarly, when the opposite happens, when there's a female writer and she's describing these scenarios, whether it's about a woman character looking at a woman or a man, how her own perspective gets into those of characters, and how even gender functions while writing characters. So these are really interesting ideas, and something that the Indian writer Rakhshanda Jalil has worked on. So in 2007, she published a collection of short stories written by many female Urdu writers, and from their point of view, how the women looked like. And 10 years later, Jalil wrote another book which was from the perspective of men or male writers. So these male writers are describing the emotions of a woman, and if you ask me, they are doing pretty good job actually. But this could well be my own bias, who knows. So I'm going to leave the judgment part on you, and I'm going to narrate a short story by Gulzar. It was written in Urdu and then translated to English by Jalil herself. So here we go, without any delay, let me narrate the story. Man by Gulzar. She was worried. Her belly was beginning to show a little. Kappu was about to come home from the hostel. What if he were to ask? She was scared as though Kappu was her husband, not her son. She would have to give an explanation. No matter what a woman might do, she always has to offer an explanation to a man, to a father, sometimes to a husband, and sometimes to a son. Bakshi offered no explanations when he had begun to see Kanta. In fact, on the rare occasion when she did ask, the crockery would be smashed about in her house. And sometimes there would be quarrels and beatings. That is how the bitterness had increased during those days. They had both decided to put Kappu in a hostel so that he might be spared the sight of their family breaking up amidst the breaking crockery. As Bakshi became friends with Kanta, he started losing his senses quite rapidly. Rama feared that she would not be able to save her home, and that is exactly what happened. For the telephone would ring and stop at the very first ring, and then Bakshi to call. For Bakshi to have office work at the oddest of times. These were the signs. Instinctively, she knew what was going on. She could understand. Bakshi began to stay away from home. Office tours were a mere excuse. She knew exactly when, where he was, and in which hotel. Within a year, she went back to work at the same bank where she used to work earlier. For this too, she had to offer an explanation to her father and to Bakshi as well. In fact, Bakshi helped her in getting her daddy to agree. He knew it would be difficult for him to run two homes on one salary. Her father had taken her side and asked, Rama, do you have some differences? Obediently, she had answered, No, no, Daddy. Now that Kapil has gone away to the hostel, I have a lot of free time. Moreover, something or the other keeps happening in one's married life. And her father didn't probe any further. All he said was, You must send Kapil to spend some time with us too. Both said, Yes, of course, and came back from Kanpur. Both had stopped asking for or giving explanations. Now that everything was out in the open, what was there to explain? They had agreed to separate with civility. But the question of Kapu had remained. How would they tell him? How would they explain what had happened between them? After all, he was still a child, only 9 years old. Rama's bank manager, Raman Kumar, tried to intercede and make things better between them, but nothing came out of it. She knew the intensity of Bakshi's passion. He had loved her too, like this once. One day, Raman Kumar had said to Rama, I can understand your tears, but I am amazed when I see Bakshi. His eyes well up with tears when he talks. He has never said a word against you. He even feels guilty. But he seems to be a very emotional person. She had always known that Bakshi was wrong, but he was not false. There wasn't any artifice in the man. Another year had passed as they had put in the divorce papers in the courts. All this while, they would go to meet Kapu in his hostel, sometimes together and sometimes separately. In the holidays, sometimes they would take him for trips outside Delhi, or he would come to stay with Rama while Bakshi would be travelling away from Delhi on official work. Kapil could sense that something was amiss, but all his young mind could say was, Papa doesn't like me like he used to, nor does he love you the way he used to. Don't be silly. He is busy with his office work, that's all. She didn't want Kapu's innocent mind to be affected. And then I have also started working in the bank. When the divorce had come through and Rama had wanted custody of their child, Bakshi had not put up any resistance. He agreed. He knew he could never make his son see his point of view in Kanta's presence. He knew it would have a bad effect on his son. He continued to going to see him at the hostel, but had no mention of having separated from his mother. Kanta didn't last for too long. Rama didn't want Bakshi to come back, nor did Bakshi want to return to Rama. The crack that had come up between them was firmly in place. It was impossible to fill it up. Now that Kapil was coming home for the holidays, Bakshi had been transferred thousands of miles away in Chennai. Perhaps it had not even occurred to him that it wasn't possible for Rama to keep up the charade any longer. Rama had decided that she will tell Kapu everything. It will hurt him, certainly, for he was very close to his father. But she would prepare him for the truth gradually. All day long she would talk to him about his father, and then at night, by the time she would tell him everything, she knew he would burst into tears. But she would comfort him. She would lull him to sleep. I'm here, my son, your mother. Kappu came home, and the moment he came before his mother, he said, Ma, has Papa left us and gone? Is it true, Ma? Rama had not been able to control herself. She had burst out crying. Kappu had stepped forward and hugged his mother. I am here, your son. And she had been stunned. When do these kids grow up? No one comes to know. That was 2 years ago. Kappu was coming back home again. He was 13 years old now. In the last holidays, he had gone to Darjeeling with the boys and girls from his school. And she too had gone travelling for a few days with Raman Kumar. She had taken a break after many years. And when she had gone to meet Kappu at Holi, she had really wanted to bring up the subject of Raman Kumar. But she was scared. What if it had a bad effect on Kappu? After all, he was just a child. She had been thinking about it all day now. After all, it is not as though Kappu has grown up and become a man. He's still a child. He's only 13. Even if he notices my belly, he will just think I've become fat. How will he know what has happened? But this time, she will certainly bring up Raman's name, and if possible, she will also mention that they have quietly registered their marriage. After all, in a few months' time, she must also ask him whether he wants a brother or sister. When Kappu came, she spent the entire day hiding her belly. She wore loose, ill-fitting clothes. Not for a minute did she allow the dupatta to slip from her body. She kept feeding him and thinking that she would broach the subject when he would lie down on the bed beside her at night when it was time for him to sleep. Suddenly, there was the sound of breaking glass in his room. She ran towards it, only to find that Kappu had wounded his hand. The glass was lying shattered into smithereens on the floor. Kappu? She had barely stepped forward when Kappu pushed her away. Don't come near me. His voice sounded choked. You have a baby in your tummy. Rama could feel her limbs going limp. Beads of perspiration broke out on her forehead. Whose child is it? Raman uncle's? Bastard! It wasn't Kappu's voice. She could hear Bakshi's. She felt it. That it wasn't her son speaking. It was her man. A man.